Hi everyone, my name is Mallory Doolin. I'm a registered dietitian and graduate student at the University of New England. Today I will be talking to you about sleep duration and the association to BMI in men and women ages 18 through 75. So a little bit about me. Again, I'm a registered dietitian. I attended Syracuse University for my undergraduate degree. I work as a clinical dietitian in San Diego, California at Sharp Healthcare, and I am anticipating completing this master's program in May 2019 through the University of New England. So to give you an overview of my presentation today, we will be going through the background on the research about sleep and BMI, look at a little bit closer at my research question, discuss my search strategy, review my included articles, review the synthesis of the results, and review the conclusions. We'll also review the strengths and limitations and ideas for future research. So some background on this situation. Obesity is a growing issue throughout the country and the world, and there are many contributing components to the obesity epidemic. One factor that I wanted to look a little bit further into is the amount of sleep men and women get each night and how this may impact overweight and obesity status. There are findings that suggest with a decrease in sleep, there is an increase in body mass index, and that sleep disturbances, sleep duration, and sleeping patterns may all influence an individual's BMI. For this project, I looked at the research question, what is the association between sleep duration and the BMI in men and women ages 18 through 75? So, to go over my search and selection strategy, the guidelines from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Evidence Analysis Library Manual were utilized. I used two internet research databases, PubMed and ProQuest, and these are used to identify relevant research. And search terms were used including sleep, sleep duration, short sleep duration, obesity, BMI, overweight, and obesity. Various combinations of these words were used to search the databases, and Boolean logistics were utilized. You can see here the results of my searches, and from my Prisma flow diagram. I'll take a moment for you to look at this, and then I will show you my included and excluded criteria. So my inclusion criteria was individuals ages 18 through 75 in an outpatient ambulatory care setting that were non-critically ill, that were looked at weight status. For my study design preference, I included randomized control trials, cross-sectional designs, clinical studies, and longitudinal studies. The size of the study groups were greater than 10 individuals for each study group, and greater than 10 subjects in the control and 10 in the intervention groups. I wanted to find studies that had low dropout rates, so my dropout rate was less than 20%. I included studies from the years of 2008 to 2019 for the past 10 years, and I looked at the authors from the studies, and the most recent research article was used for each author. My exclusion criteria was similar to the inclusion criteria, except the opposite. So we were looking at excluding any that were acutely ill, younger than 18 or older than 75, those who are critically ill, acutely ill. The study designs that were excluded were any systematic review and literature review, any small study groups, any study with a high dropout rate, and any article published prior to 2008. So let's get started on my included articles. So the first article that I found that met my inclusion criteria was conducted by Brady and his associates in 2018. This was a cross-sectional analysis that investigated the association between sleep duration, obesity, adipokines, and insulin resistance in those with high risk of type 2 diabetes. The analysis was conducted from data using two screening phases of two clustered randomized controlled trials. These trials were Walking Away from Diabetes and Let's Prevent Diabetes. For this study, 2,848 participants were included in the analysis. The study found that short sleep and long sleep duration were significantly independently associated with higher body mass index, body weight, and waist circumference. 6 to 7 hours of sleep in a 24-hour time period was associated with the lowest obesity measures. The authors concluded that there is evidence between short sleep and long sleep duration in indices of obesity. The second study that I identified from my research was conducted by Spaeth and his associates in 2013. This was a randomized crossover trial that examined sleep restriction and its effects on weight gain, daily caloric intake, and meal timing. This included 224 healthy adults ages 25 through 50. The intervention included approximately 8-to-1 randomization to an experimental condition, which was 5 consecutive nights of 4 hours in bed, or to the control condition, which was all nights 10 hours in bed. The study found that sleep-restricted subjects gained more weight than control subjects. African Americans gained more weight than Caucasians, and males gained more weight than females. Sleep-restricted subjects consumed extra calories of daily caloric requirement during the days with a delayed bedtime versus control subjects who did not consume extra calories. The authors concluded that from the end of their study that sleep restriction promotes weight gain. Sleep-restricted adults may also be more susceptible to weight gain. The third study I concluded was conducted by Boise Westphal in 2008 with his associates, which was a case-controlled investigation to discover the impact of partial sleep deprivation on the regulation of energy balance and insulin sensitivity. This study included 14 healthy women ages 23 to 38. The intervention required the subjects to participate in 2 nights of greater than 8 hours of sleep, 4 nights of increasing sleep curtailment, so 7 hours, 6 hours, and 5 hours of sleep per night, and then 2 hours of recovery sleep with greater than 8 hours per night. Following a reduction in sleep duration, energy intake increased on average of 20% body weight by an average of plus 0.4 kilograms. Leptin fat mass increased by an average of 29%, and free thyroxine increased by 19%. Free thyroxine increased by 10%, and GIT increased by 34%. The authors of this study concluded that short-term sleep deprivation increased energy intake and led to weight gain in women. The final study that I included in this review was conducted by Yi and his associates in 2013. This was another cross-sectional study that examined the relationship between short sleep duration and body mass index, waist circumference, visceral fat area, and subcutaneous fat area. The study and intervention were completed as part of a comprehensive health examination conducted at the Heihachi Healthcare Center in Japan. Participants in this study filled out a computer-based survey questionnaire on the day of the regular health checkup. 6,527 subjects received an abdominal computer tomography scanning examination and were the targets of this study. Waist circumference, visceral fat mass area, and subcutaneous fat area were measured using a CT scanner. Body height and weight were measured by an automated scale, and sleep duration was self-reported. After all of this data was collected, the study found that the mean values of BMI, waist circumference, and subcutaneous fat area decreased with increasing sleep duration after adjustments for ages, physical activity, smoking, and drinking habits. The author concluded that shorter sleep duration is associated with higher BMI, waist circumference, and subcutaneous fat area in men. So to bring all of these results together, the results from this systematic literature review support that short sleep duration is associated with an increased BMI in men and women ages 18 through 75. Reduced sleep duration of less than 4 hours per evening is associated with weight gain and subsequent risk of obesity. So we may have found, that window where less than 4 hours can cause the greatest risk. Further, reduced sleep can also be associated with fasting insulin, increased calorie consumption, increased waist circumference, increased subcutaneous fat area, leptin and fat mass, free thyroxine, glucose intolerance, and more. From the research, I concluded that an ideal sleep duration of 6 to 7 hours per night was associated with the least amount of changes in body mass index. From my systematic review, there were many limitations. More research needs to be done, and so the available research did not provide the best picture. Some of the studies included are cross-sectional analysis and design, and they cannot infer causality. This would be stronger if I had access to more randomized controlled trials. Unfortunately, many of the studies that I found either had high levels of dropout rates or were too small of a sample size to include in this study, in this review. Several of the studies have a relatively small sample size, and larger population groups would allow for better data and results. So even though I excluded those studies that had less than 10 participants in each group, there were still studies that had as few as 14 participants and may not be a great representation of the whole general population for these recommendations. More research is needed to further identify the relationship between sleep, BMI, and various other health risk factors, including gender, race and ethnicity, insulin resistance, cardiovascular risk, and more. So to go further, there's many indications for future research. The research between sleep and BMI should be tested in randomized controlled trials that may be better able to prove causality and clinical significance. Indications for future work could consider looking at relationships between sleep and different genders, races, and ethnicities. So in one of the studies, there was a difference between African Americans and Caucasians. So as we continue to study sleep, we should look and see how it affects different races and populations. Sleep duration should also be researched in its regards to its effects on cardiovascular and endocrine functions. We know that there are many different factors that influence from sleep, and there could be more significance on how it affects our cardiovascular and endocrine health. In conclusion, sleep duration and weight have an interesting relationship to observe. I was able to really study and look at many different research and indications of different ways sleep can affect the BMI. What I did take away is that it is essential for the right amount of sleep for appropriate weight maintenance. Too much sleep or too little sleep can be associated negatively with an individual's health. Results from this systematic literature review reveal that the amount of sleep received per day likely impacts the weight and body mass index of an individual. But as I mentioned, although there were many strengths to this study, there were also several limitations. Further research is really necessary to help further identify the relationship between sleep and BMI. I would love to welcome any questions you have about my research that I did for this capstone presentation. Feel free to reach out to me via my email listed below, mdoolan1@une.edu, or to use the Blackboard function and message me directly. I welcome any questions that you may have. Here is a list of the references that I included in this PowerPoint presentation, but again, feel free to send me an email if you have any questions regarding any of the other studies that I looked at in my literature review prior to conducting my systematic review for this project. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to my presentation today, and I wish you a really great rest of your day and success in completing the rest of this course. Thank you.